Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rakhma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
And the truth that is rooted within me.
Well, good afternoon if you are in the afternoon time. Good morning if you're way out there on the West Coast. My name is Michael Ryce, and your host for today. Our celebration of Memorial Day moves into, I believe, day 46 now. We're 46 days out, if I'm remembering correctly, and I may not be, from the Memorial Day celebration of this year, where we are inviting you and everybody that's with us to become part of the celebration of the removal of war from planet Earth. How are we going to do that? Well, I think there's only one possibility, and that is we've got to get rid of the cause of war. What is the cause of war? I would offer that the only reason we have war is hostility, fear, and one of its stepchildren, greed. And so the invitation is that you would take the tools that we're offering, put them to work in your life, and remove any form of hostility or fear that you may have within you. And as you do that, start to change the game on planet Earth. So my name is Michael Ryce, and I'm here to support you in that process. And if you choose to engage in that forgiveness process, if you haven't been with us at this point and aren't familiar with what we're talking about, on the right-hand side of our website, www.whyagain.com, there's a link, and the link says download worksheets. We invite you to tap into that link, and as you tap into it, we'll ask you to look at the first 3 links underneath that one. That will give you the whole Aramaic forgiveness process, the how-to of changing what's happening inside your mind. And so we're here to support you in that, and we welcome you. I see that Sam is in the chat room, and Tim, I think, are you with us, Tim, online?
I'm on the air.
Awesome. Well, Sam, you could call in, and we could have a 3-way chat today. Jeanie isn't going to be with us. Jeanie is actually down in the kitchen doing food, so we're not going to have a chat room operational today. If Sam, if either you or Tim could maybe do that part, that would be awesome. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But otherwise, Sam, if you'd like to call in, that would be awesome. This is actually our second day. We started last night with a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive. And we are going to change our format a little bit as of tomorrow. Our normal intensive time when we do a workshop is we start class at 1:15. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a taste of an intensive. And the way that we're going to give you a taste of an intensive is that we're going to broadcast our workshop live. As it happens, the workshop actually starts at 1:15, so we'll have about 15 minutes to start out. And then we'll actually just go right into it. So there won't be a chat room operational, and there won't be questions and answers, but you'll get a taste of a live intensive and what's happening there. So our plan, at least we're going to try this out and see how it works, is to go through the next month of workshops. And each day we'll broadcast live from an intensive. And there'll be a couple of exceptions where our timing doesn't work out, but that's basically what we're planning. So, Tim, how do you be? Anything exciting happening in your world?
Well, I'm doing well. Nothing big or exciting to report day after day. People using the tools and reporting that it's improving their lives, so that's big and exciting. But it's I'm still doing well with my back, still walking straight, and having identified and expressed some fears, and having them out on the table really helps keep my body from having to scream at me that I haven't dealt with it. So that continues to go well.
Isn't that an awesome purpose that pain has, to make our ears grow?
Yep.
To get us to wake up and listen to what we're doing to ourselves?
Yep. It's such a blessing to identify that that's the role it can serve in my life, instead of having it feed more anger and more pain and more frustration in a loop.
Well, it's interesting that that's the genetic propensity, because that's what's been happening on our planet with thousands of people, millions of people for thousands of years. And it's time for that to change. It's time for a shift to take place. It's time for us to wake up and do the things that need to be done to move out of what never belonged in a human life in the first place. And our offering is that any form of hostility or fear never belonged in your world, in your mind, in your body. And the alternative to that is to live as the presence of love, as an actual human being, regardless of what circumstances are going on. You might remember one of the originators of the tools for achieving this result said, I am in this world but not of this world. But we're all here. We're all playing this game. And you don't have to allow what's happening in the external to run what's happening in the internal. That seems impossible for one who's never had the tools to change that dynamic. I certainly understand that. Been there, done that. But as you begin to understand the actual original forgiveness process, it's the way to remove what held you out of your human life. And our definition for a human life is really simple, really easy thing to grasp. All you have to do is hold a newborn. You know exactly what a human life is. It's the active presence of love. And we're here to support you in doing that. Now, people who do that aren't very controllable, so they're not really popular in the culture, actually, down through the ages. Many of them have been murdered because they, not only did they not bring booty to the king, they did not support the king in his insanity of trying to steal through war everything that belonged to everyone else. So the culture has made up a story about how those who would actually live as an actual human life, would actually live as love, must be some kind of special creature. But the most powerful, shining examples of living in that state said, the things I do, you too can do. Now, kings and their minions would prefer that you not know such truths. They'd rather have you buy the shell game of being the hero and playing the hero game. But we're inviting people to actually let go of that one and tap into who we actually are as human beings, as love. Experience that and move into an actual, true human life, as we were designed to live. So, Tim, any thoughts in that regard today? Anything in particular on your mind? You've got a support group coming up tonight. Are you with us, Tim?
Are you there?
I'm here. I
Okay.
just lost you there for a moment.
Yes. We have our group coming up tonight. If there's electricity, I've missed it. We didn't get to meet last week. And in the chat room, Sam was having trouble hearing, but now she can hear, and I let her know that you asked her to call in so we could have a three-way conversation. I don't know how she would get put on. Are you monitoring the computer?
Actually, I'm monitoring the phones. Yes.
Okay, so
Can't
if you
do the show, monitor the phones, and monitor the chat room, but I can do.
Okay, well I'll check the chat room, and she said she would call in, so maybe Sam will join us shortly.
That would be awesome.
And all I have to say about what you were just talking about is that the peace, the tremendous level of greater relaxation, the decrease in anger and frustration in my life since using your tools makes it all worthwhile. And I know, because I keep getting feedback from people, that my presence in a difficult situation and my ability to stay calm and loving spills over onto them and affects their mood and their reaction in the moment, and often, as they tell me in follow-up emails and phone calls, motivates them to do more of their own work. So it has a tremendous ripple effect. The primary benefit is to me, and the secondary and tertiary benefit goes on and on and on.
Absolutely. I'll second that one. I actually got a call from a young man this morning who's in Asheville, North Carolina, and when it was at one of our workshops about 20 years ago, and Terry, who's doing a support group in Asheville, had set up last Friday before we left the Bristol, Tennessee area, had asked us if we'd come down. Actually, a friend named Tony and Terry helped set it up. And we went down and did a workshop, and he was there, and he just called this morning and said, I just want to let you know how this has impacted my life. And actually, he's a chef, and he may be coming to Heartland, which would be kind of cool. And so we're just moving along and moving forward and hold the space that all is well. And it looks like, I've got two computers sitting here in front of me. I'm running the mouse on one, trying to get Jeanie's computer to let Sam on. Excuse me, Sam, it took me a moment, but I think you should be with us.
I'm here.
Hello, Sam.
Hey, young lady.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you loud and clear. We've got you, and as you know, and as you've shared before, when you live in your true nature, it makes changes for everybody. There's actually a course that we set up about 25 years ago in South Florida, Unity Church there, and we set up a course called Lessons in Living. And the first lesson that we took in to these kids from kindergarten to grade 8, first lesson that each of them got was, when I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. There's a literal energetic dynamic when you're in a field of love. If you can get enough people doing that, there's some research that's been done by meditators, and they'll go into a city and, purposely they'll set a time frame where they'll go into a city with X number of people meditating, and I forget they've come up with numbers as to how many it takes. And they just reliably watch crime statistics go down, abuse statistics go down, things change. So the bottom line solution to the whole game, the thing that opens us up individually and collectively to living in health, joy, in our relationships, aliveness, abundance, creativity, is to remove what doesn't belong and to engage in what does belong, which is the active presence of love. And it doesn't serve the power brokers of the world to live that way. So it's kind of been hidden away for centuries. It's been turned into religious dogma of fear to keep people out of the active practice of being the presence of love. And forgiving what does not belong. And our forgiveness process has nothing to do with letting other people off the hook. If there's something less than love happening inside of us, the forgiveness process is the tool you use to remove what never belonged in you in the first place. What belongs in a human life? The active presence of love. That's what we're designed for. That's what we're designed to live in. That's what we're designed to live as. So, Sam, what do you think of all that?
Well, I can tell you firsthand, I know that it works. Because I wasn't always in a space of love in my previous life. I think I've mentioned before that walk around with a smile on my face most of the time, and I'll be walking through a store grocery shopping, and it's kind of strange, and I love to do it, but I'll just be smiling, and I'll see people coming forward toward me with just a frown on their face, and they'll look up and see me, and they'll just automatically smile. And I know it's because of the energy I'm holding. If people really understood that it's all energy, that what we put out there is energy. And it's really fun to do. I'd like to offer for others to try that, to see how it works for them, because I just have fun doing it. It's just I just walk around through the store with a smile on my face, and people come up and look at me and smile and go on, and it's like I've touched them in some way, and I've given them a little piece of what love is about, and maybe that can help their day. It's all energy.
Absolutely. You know, you look back at Thoreau, and he writes about how most men live lives of quiet desperation. Of course, he wasn't just speaking about males, he was speaking about the species. And you look at how many people are committing suicide with drugs, alcohol, legal drugs, illegal drugs. As many, probably more, far more, are committing suicide with illegal drugs as are illegal drugs. And it just goes on and on and on. There's a really powerful story of Henry David Thoreau going to jail over a matter of conscience, where he said, you know, I will not bow down to the king where my higher source, my higher power says no. And he listened intently to that being part of himself. And one of the things he says, and it really ties in with the quotes we've been using from Einstein, where he speaks about this awesome gift called intuition that's been destroyed in our culture. And he says that this voice, it is a voice all men possess but few men follow, and as a result end up morally numb. And you look at what passes in our culture as sanity, and I don't care, it's from the highest of the culture to the lowest of the culture, and it's absolutely bizarre. When Emerson was in prison, or pardon me, when Thoreau was in prison, Emerson came to visit him. They were friends. And he said to Henry David Thoreau, Henry, what are you doing in there? And Thoreau replied instead, he said, Waldo, the real question is, what are you doing out there? Why do you not have a voice of conscience that you listen to? Why do you go along with the manipulations of men that grow bigger and bigger by the day? And our culture forces us to shut this voice down. And we're looking to support you in awakening it, strengthening it. It takes time to shift back to being. Again, what is being? Hold a newborn child, and you know exactly what human life is. It takes time to do the work that takes you back to being. But as you apply the tools, the work pays off in ways that are unimaginable. And we are here absolutely to support you in that. And the rewards are far more than all the world's riches could imagine. And the idea here, the work that we're doing, is to support you and your whole bloodline, past, present, and future, flourishing in every arena of your lives. It is natural for a human being to have an abundant, joyous life of well-being and delightful relationships. And the liberty to live life that way, the way it's designed to be lived, is our own. But it's impossible without our core issues and the family patterns, the societal blockages being overcome, and by stepping out of the ignorance of the principles by which such a life is created. It is ours to create if we choose to go there, and we're here to support you in doing that. James Madison, one of the founding fathers, says this: knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and the people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power which knowledge gives. Time to wake up. It's been known for thousands of years how to do this. It's been hidden for thousands of years because it doesn't serve kings. You start to say something, Sam?
I was just going to say I encourage anyone who's listening in right now, if they have any issues or pain going on in their life, to call in. It's something that when you start sharing what's going on and you start looking inside, you can begin to heal what you need to heal. And I think many people don't totally understand what healing means. And to me, it's just simple. It's moving out of the fear and hostility and being able to maintain love in everything that you do. And the healing part, I have found that people don't quite understand what that means. I remember years ago someone said something about healing, and I remembered having the thought, healing from what? What does that mean? Because we have so much denial going on in our lives and we suppress so much, we're not really sure what we need to heal from. And I would really love to see some people call in and talk about some things, upsets or whatever's going on in their life.
Absolutely. And, it's a case of course, building the brain cells. We can't function out of brain cells we don't have. And, most of the culture thinks healing means you go take a pill. You go fulfill a prescription. And I'd offer that has to do with symptom suppression, has nothing whatsoever to do with healing. Healing is when you take charge of your own life and you remove what never belonged. And so building the brain cells for how to do that means that you might be the first one in your bloodline to ever even be able to have a conversation about it. This young man I was speaking about a few minutes ago that called me from Asheville, he was sharing with me that his father introduced him. It was interesting. We have a lot of parallels in the work we've done over the years. And it was 20 years ago that he first came to one of our workshops, and he said it opened a whole space, and he's been doing forgiveness work with people that were sins. But he said that his father introduced him to these ideas when he was 5 years of age. Not many of us had that opportunity. I know I certainly didn't. I had to start from scratch when I was first introduced to this way of thinking, at least scratch from this family system and this time around, at around the age of 25. It was a starting point. And most of my family thought I was nuts. Like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You've got a business. You've got a penthouse apartment. You've got a Mark III on one side of your driveway. You've got an Eldorado on the other side of your driveway. What are you doing walking away from all of that? Are you crazy? It's like, well, no, actually. Started to build some new brain cells. There's something else going on here. That stuff just isn't worth the powder to blow it wherever you might want to blow it. And so it definitely takes building the brain cells, and you have to hang around it for a while to build those brain cells, to bring forward the understanding that we're talking about. And I'm here to inspire you to question your answers. The culture prevents all kinds of pat answers, like, everybody knows this. Well, most of what they say everybody knows isn't true. So I invite you to enter into the willingness to question the health and disease presumptions you've been fed. And I don't care who you are, on what level. If you're a physician, especially if you're a physician, I invite you to start to question the sacred cows that you've been fed in your life. And, we just did a series of workshops out in Pahrump and in Las Vegas, Nevada. A physician there that is doing support groups with people using these tools. And when he introduced us to his 20 medical assistants to teach them the forgiveness process so they could support the patients, he said, I can give people drugs forever. It's not going to heal anything. And he'd been doing this work for about 13 years. He said, this is the only thing I know that heals people. And so there's some sacred cows that are going to have to be reevaluated, their veracity established, and discarded once they're proven questionable. And I'd offer that anything that was ever fed to you based out of hostility or fear is not only questionable, it's simply not true. It's a lie. Because the hostility and fear-based mind is a liar. The hostility and fear-based mind presents frauds and has practiced making it look like those things are true. So I don't care what, discipline your presumptions came from, whether it was educational, business, religious doctrine, dogma, relationship assumptions, that everybody thinks must be true because everybody believes them. All of this needs to be surveyed and questioned in light of truth. Words or ideas that arise from hostility and fear, once you start to recognize that they are invalid, is to start to let go of them, to stop using those words and start to move into a different type of language. And, it's not easy in our culture to bypass the pressure of the authorities that try to force us to refrain from questioning their assumptions, from looking at whether or not there's a basis in truth for what's being said. And basically what it's doing is just protecting a moneymaker. Hostility and fear is used to protect a way of life that doesn't include truth. And so we're here to support you in truth, presence of love, the human life. If you have a question, if you have a thought, if any of this doesn't make sense to you, or does, and you have a question about the tools, I invite you to call us. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. 646-200-4169 is our call-in number. We'd love to hear from you. Tim, are you watching the chat room? Is there anything happening in the chat that we need to know about?
I'm watching. We've got either 14 or 15 users on, now down to 13. People are just listening, and no comments in the chat room. I was just going to say, adding on to what you and Sam have already said, that you're never too old for this. I had a woman come in today who's 75 years old, and she had seen me last year for some work with family issues and conflicts between her and her adult daughter and son, and she came back because what we were doing back then was so helpful, and now she's got another couple crises that she has to face in the next few weeks, and she wanted to make sure she was doing it the right way. So it's never too late to break out of the old patterns, establish some new lessons, build some new brain cells, and approach your life as though you are the creator you really are.
Absolutely. And brain cells, as we use the term here, are the body's storage system for information held for future recall. It's not about building new physical structure. And because we tend to be creatures of habit, we need to start to remove old, inaccurate ways of thinking and behaving. And new content based in truth must be constructed in order for our thinking, feelings, physiology, relationships, finances, and our lives in general to change. To keep doing the same old thing and expecting a different result, to be unwilling to build a new set of skills and hoping to change what's happening in the world is tantamount to crazy. And so to integrate ideas based in truth will require questioning virtually everything. And then deleting, and you delete through forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about letting others or yourself off the hook. You delete fear and or hostility-based thinking through forgiveness. And that thinking has been implanted to control us, and it never belonged in our minds in the first place. So the prime requirement is the process of forgiveness. And it takes time to build the brain cells for significant change to occur. It's just a process. And it takes time for that type of integration of new ideas to take place. So you can only make sense of a new... Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Michael. I have a delay on my phone, so I thought you were through.
Go for it. I'm listening.
Okay. I think the one piece that needs to be in there in order to begin this work is giving up the need to be right. I work with so many different people that just want to cling to that because that becomes their identity. They have to be right because if they're not right, they're going to be in trouble. They're going to be, it's a thing stored many years ago in our childhood, probably in arguing with mom and dad or whatever, however it was stored. But people have such a strong need to hang on to their way of thinking, and it's very challenging for them to give up their righteousness sometimes because sometimes that's all they have. And I always encourage people to have the willingness to look at things differently because what if you're not right? What if it's not right? Your thinking is off. And many people just cling to that because that's all they have.
Well, another part of that, Sam, is that they think that's all they have because that's what they've been conditioned to. And as Michael talks about in the process of the codependent to interdependent workshop, we learn that by our interaction with our power person. And the human who's living from something other than the human life, from the without being aware of the active presence of love, that person is almost always trying to force their idea of what's right on every situation. And if I'm a child in that, I'm watching this person who I look up to as a god, and I internalize the idea that that's how I have to handle life situations. That's how I get to be like my power person. I have to figure out what I know is right and then try to impose that on every situation. And the essence of it is I grow up thinking that's all I have and that's what defines me as a person. And in reality, that is nothing about what I am. I am the active presence of love. I am the extension of love in form, and I have the ability to be so much more than I ever dreamt or was ever taught to me, as Michael says, by anybody who was coming from the place of anger or fear. My options are limitless compared to that.
My daughter posted a quote on Facebook yesterday by Dr. Wayne Dyer. It says, "A woman asked me recently, what are my blocks to my happiness?" I said, "The belief that you have blocks."
That would be true. That would be true. Michael, someone's typing in on the chat room that the Skype link does not work. Do you have access to whether or not, if someone calls in on a Skype, will you be getting that on the computer you're looking at?
As far as I know, now I've never run the switchboard, so I just took Jeanie's computer to be able to kick somebody in if they click them in if they call in. But I don't see a Skype link here, and I don't know how it works. As far as I know, it just comes in like any other call. I'm seeing a couple of callers in the chat room, but nobody's got their hand up. I'm seeing a 607 number, a 541, a 602, 417, 417, 815. So if you called in on Skype, unfortunately, I don't have the brain cells for what to do with that. My apology.
All right. So it just says it's a dead end using the link. So perhaps we have to have you open up something else on your end that you're unaware of. So we'll just have to say until you get schooled in that by Jeanie that we aren't using Skype today. But feel free to type.
For that. We actually have a new switchboard that we've taken on recently, and it's, I know the old switchboard had a Skype link right on the face of it, but I don't know about this one, and I just don't know how to tell.
All right, I'm just letting them know that they're free to write in their question, and we'll relay it to you.
Cool.
So the idea is, in order to begin moving forward, as Sam puts forward, we have to be able to give up our obsession or our claim to being right. One of my favorite quotes from Guy Finley is, how could the fact that you're in pain add to your conclusion that you're right and other people are wrong? Your pain doesn't prove you're right. Your pain only proves that you don't know what rightness is.
That's for sure. No question about it. And the foundation of most people's thinking, it's interesting, we talked about the Beatitudes a week or so ago. The root of thinking for most people, or what's called thinking, is totally unconscious. And it includes generations and generations of just crazy stuff, just stuff that never makes sense. And so until we're willing to wake up to who we are and start to question those things, we tend to be locked in and lost in that world of crazy time. Forgiveness is a way to put an end to crazy time. Forgiveness is a way to remove everything that is unlike love and put you back on track with the human life. And we are absolutely here to support you in that. And as we say, it takes time to build the brain cells. It takes time to tap into who we are as human beings and to function out of a true human life. Our task, should you choose to participate, is to support you learning forgiveness and removing everything that never belonged from your human life, being restored to the active presence of love.
I have a friend, Michael, that is very stuck in his way of thinking, and it's sometimes challenging to even carry on a conversation with someone like that because there need to be right, there need to be putting themselves down constantly. He made a statement the other day that he's obviously wrong in everything that he says and does. And I said, well, why would you think that? Because from my observation. And he just assumes things about situations because he's carrying the reality that he's nothing, that he's not worth anything, that he's wrong in everything that he does. And I just can't get him to understand that it's his way of thinking. That. Yeah, he has just a very strong need, and he can't seem to move ahead in what he wants to do because his need to be right is always there. And he said, he keeps telling me all the time, you're so wrong in thinking that your thoughts control what goes on in your life. He said, that has nothing to do with it. It's life. Life deals me a bad hand. And I said, the way you're thinking about that is what's dealing you a bad hand. And he said, you're wrong. You're wrong. Okay. And sometimes there's not a thing you can do to help those people that you want to help when they think that way. You know, they just become so stuck in their need to hang on to their thoughts.
Well, you know, the quote we've shared a couple of times of David Bohm, physicist. This man is one that gets mentioned mostly in conversations with Einstein. He was right up there, actually worked with Einstein, and worked in the area of neuropsychology, philosophy, theoretical physics. He worked on the Manhattan Project. He worked with Carl Pribram at Stanford, a neuroscientist, and actually developed one of the early holonomic models of the brain. Here's what he says. What is the source of all our trouble? I'm saying the source is basically in thought. You might want to share this quote with him because it might, you know, he might respect someone like Bohm and what this giant of an intellect is saying. So he says, I'm saying the source is basically in thought. Many people would think that such a statement is crazy because that thought is the one thing we have with which to solve our problems. That's part of our tradition, yet it looks as if the thing we use to solve our problems is the source of our problems. I say that the system has a fault in it, a systemic fault. It is not a fault here, there, or here, but it is a fault throughout the whole system. Can you picture that? It is everywhere and nowhere. That system not only includes thoughts and feelings, but includes the state of the body. It includes the whole of society. You may say, I see a problem here, so I will bring my thoughts to bear on this problem. But my thought is part of the system. It has the same fault as the fault I'm trying to look at, or a similar fault. Thought is constantly creating problems that way and then trying to solve them. But as it tries to solve them, it makes it worse because it doesn't notice that it's creating them. And the more it thinks, the more problems it creates. And, of course, we know that it's not really thought that's occurring in that situation. It's actually the absence of thought. Thought is what comes from being. Thought is what Emerson was speaking about when he spoke about this voice inside of conscience. Thought comes from there. What's going on in rote memory is just a cycling of information, no different than that of a computer, and that's what Bohm is speaking about here, is that if we think we're thinking just because there's information cycling in the mind, you know, that's like taking a a middle C tuning fork and putting it in front of a second tuning fork. And when the second tuning fork starts to vibrate, we say, see, that second tuning fork is thinking now. Excuse me, is the second tuning fork thinking just because it's vibrating? Just because brain cells are vibrating and sending off a signal, is there any thinking going on? If there's no conscious human life, if there's no active presence of love, there is not thinking. And whatever the mind holds, it will present its assumptions as pictures. And it's time for us to wake up for that. In other words, it's time to be out of our minds. The memory bank from 1,000 generations of thought or 1,000 generations of non-thinking just replicate themselves like a virus. They replicate, just carry on. And we have in this so-called body's mind, we have a converter that moves things from digital, energetic, into pictures, analog. So here's what Bohm says. He says, whatever you think appears in consciousness as a show. That's the way thought works to display its content, a show of imagination. Therefore, if you think the observer is separate from the observed, it's going to appear that way. Our mind makes up pictures of everything we think. And if our thinking isn't based in a human life, in love, we're in trouble. That's a big piece of information to get a hold of. And to bypass the optical delusion that our non-thinking, non-being mind presents to us. You collapse the vignettes, you collapse the pictures, the images, the show that your mind puts on through forgiveness. And as you collapse that, you get to return to your true state of being, the actual presence of a human life. And that's what we're here to support you in.
I like the analogy with the tuning fork, not thinking. That's a great way of explaining it. Michael, the person the person in the chat room that couldn't call in, his question is, he understands what is the forgiveness process as referred to by Michael, but I have an awkward feeling about how it's I scrolled down, about how, let me find it again.
You have say it again, I have something feeling?
But I have an awkward feeling about how it is the word forgiveness is used. And Dr. Tim asked how so, and he said, why forgiveness in this application? And it makes it more difficult to relate this process to others when I can't grasp the way the word fits in application here. And then Dr. Tim was explaining about the Greek meaning of to pardon, and he was explaining the realities. And he said, we'll ponder this after the show, but it sounds to me like what I am looking for is to see that it is unfolding of several steps of misunderstanding that make it hard to relate to the current use of the word.
Well, in part of our project here, I've had people who said, well, Michael, why don't you just make up a new word? Well, then we'd be throwing out a whole history that is valid and useful to us. We'd be buying into exactly what Karl Marx said he would use to destroy a society. Karl Marx says, change the meaning of a word and you destroy a culture. And why would that be? And I would offer that the reason why, if you change the meaning of a word, you destroy a culture is because you remove from that culture whatever that word represents. And what we're looking to do, what I've chosen to take responsibility for, is bringing the original Aramaic idea of forgiveness back into the forefront. And when we understand that, we have a genetic history that will support us in making that our own. Just making up a new word and starting over, I've seriously looked at that because I've heard this objection before. Well, gee, that's not what I was told, man. It's supposed to mean something else. It's like, okay. So what we're looking to do is to restore the original Aramaic idea of forgiveness to the planet. And the word does not mean I'm going to let you off the hook because of what's happening in me. That's pardoning. We've been sold a Greek idea. And what we're looking to do, it's real simple. but it's a significant shift. We're looking to restore the actual original meaning of forgiveness, and that is to remove what never belonged in your structure. Hostility and fear never belonged. Yes, it does take a major shift to recognize the truth of that. But there's a really easy way to determine for yourself whether or not it's true. And that is, go to the website. Go to www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. Go on in and download the first 3 links and put the pen to the paper. What you will find is you will start to collapse and disappear the hostilities and fears in your world. Each time you do that worksheet process, you'll find things out about yourself that you didn't know. And we're looking to reestablish that. And I very purposely chosen not to simply, well, let's go out and coin a new word and start over again. Because we do have a heritage. And it's time for us, rather than just giving it up, rather than turning it over to the, what should I say, to the insane mind, it's time for us to reclaim what we're here to do. And most of what's been fed, as Bohm says, there's a systemic fault throughout the whole system of the mind, or the so-called mind. And when one doesn't have the brain cell content for a particular truth, or does not have the content for the truth that was deeper than the misperceptions of the day, in the ancient teachings they spoke of those who didn't have that deeper level of understanding. They said, those who have ears but do not hear, those who have eyes and do not see. And this perennial work of inner hearing, inner speaking, inner healing is sadly systematically taken over because it doesn't support the right of kings. It doesn't support the game of the world. And so when hostility or fear tries to take it over, it will turn it around backwards and destroy it. We're looking to turn it back around frontward and get enough people engaged that we will create a critical mass shift. And what happens when you collapse the output of a mind based in hostility and fear is that you get to experience the direct presence of love instead of the direct presence of fear. And if you go back to the original work in Aramaic, the idea was to give people an experience of their human lives, an experience of the active presence of love. Sadly, many used the allure of the power of the originator's work and fabricated it from their own brain cell content in the name of one who taught, live a human life, first and foremost. First law, when you think of the Creator, when you think of neighbor, when you think of self, maintain your human life, that's all. Live as love. Then the mind of hostility or fear hears this, and out of their own brain cell content, they make up a story of fear, using the words of love to gain power over others. And then it finds this measure of false security in its ability to control, financial and otherwise, everybody it can. It's a pretty poor substitute for being, but one who's lost there doesn't know that that's what's going on. They're functioning unconsciously. So one who has a mind filled with its own unresolved hostilities and fears, void of the actual experience of a human life, of the absolute, awesome, cellular presence of love, lacking in the capacity to see anything beyond its own content. In the ancient teachings, they were spoken as one who would come near to truth with the mouth, but their heart was far away. They would use all the right words, but still do behaviors based in hostility or fear. So if one doesn't have the eyes to see the inconsistency in that, then truth is attacked. And we're not going to move or advance, at least as far as I understand it. We're not going to move forward or advance the project of truth by, let's just rename it something else. or forgiveness. Let's just rename it. We're going to reestablish the original meaning. And when we're not consistent, we have a support team. When one is blind and while appearing to see, can't see what's going on, when they live in blockage of truth, one of the ideas of this radio show is to support you in having feedback, being able to see things that otherwise perhaps are blocked. And the insane mind, and we define an insane mind as a mind without a human life in it, a mind that does not have the active presence of love. And, of course, we've all been there. We've all lived that. I'll put myself right at the head of the line with that one. Been there, done that. Too often, too much, too long. But when you start collapsing that insane mind through forgiveness, again, the worksheet's free on the website. When you start to collapse that insane mind, you get out of the absurd system of fear, verbal, emotional, physical abuse, war, torture, institutionalized torture. You look at the words in this culture that have justified torture. It just goes on and on and on. The condemnation, the threats, the separation, the killing in the name of love. And somehow a mind that lives in blockage of truth conceives of all of this as logical. It's actually able to convince people that what it's talking about is love, while what it's doing is telling you that you're getting ready to be sent to eternal damnation. The record of the atrocities committed by high officials of every center of authority in this culture in the name of love would fill volumes and continues virtually uniformly throughout officialdom to this day. And a mind without the actual direct experience of love, this awesome presence in your structure from its own darkened state, imagines punishment and sacrifice as a reasonable way back to love, and actually makes these bizarre ideas of men commandments. Go and sacrifice something, go and kill something. Then you'll get back in the good graces of love. Who promotes this system based in fear and control and pretends that these loveless ideas of men based in non-being are logical and teaches that these things are the things demanded by love in order for us to return home? Hello? Does it make any sense? And this is the stuff that the theological monstrosities of guilt and fear-based theologies have been given. And sadly, many people, because of that insanity, turn away from the only logical solution to their pain. It's because the loveless minds that purport to represent love act not in the name of love, but in their own names. You might remember the man Yeshua 2,000 years ago. He said, "You've made of null effect the commandments of the Creator by the commands of men." I love a quote from Voltaire, 1694. Voltaire says, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities."
Oh, wow.
Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. Voltaire, 1694. Pretty insightful mind. And you look at the atrocities, and they are so rampant. They are so absolutely bizarre. So this is a wake-up call, folks. We're here to support you. We're here to hold the space. We're here to invite you to hold the space for us as we come to deeper and deeper levels of understanding. And we invite you to engage in this internal process of correction and to come to understand these basic facts about who and what the human being is, what the mind is. You go back to the ancient scriptures that said, "For a lack of knowledge, my people are destroyed." What were they talking about? Those made of love have been destroyed because somebody filled their minds with insane thinking.
Michael, I would offer. Michael?
Yes, sir. Go for it.
I would offer that as we've been talking about, one of the first and most important things is to recognize if I'm in pain, I'm in error. I'm not right. I have to give up that obsession that I'm right. And then for me, one of the next most important steps is to recognize that I'm creating what I'm feeling. I brought within me into this situation all of the sadness, fear, pain, and confusion that gets stirred up here. And that's in direct contradiction to what I've been trained to believe my entire life.
Yeah.
When I was with someone this morning, she was, as I mentioned, she was 75 years old, and so probably because of her age, this image came to me of we used to get these huge, big glasses of very cold milk, and we used to take Hershey's syrup and pour it in. And it would just go right through all the white milk and pool at the bottom.
Yep.
And if we then drank the milk, all we would have is nice, white, clean milk. But then along comes a spoon. And by the time the spoon is done stirring stuff up, the entire glass is full of chocolate. Well, if I blame the chocolate on the spoon, it came clean. It didn't have any chocolate on it. It just came to the glass and was going to... So if I do that and I have a nice white glass of milk and I don't put any chocolate in it to begin with, and that spoon comes along, it can whip up all at once. I still have a white glass of milk.
Right. Good point.
It helped her see. You know,
so you mean if I don't have hostility and fear in me, nobody can come along with a spoon and stir it up? Is that what you're saying, Tim?
Pretty much what I'm saying. Blaming my anger... Blaming my anger on somebody else.
Great enough. Can I use that when it hasn't patented?
No, it hasn't been patented.
Cool. Tell you what, we've got a caller, 602. You're on the line. Where are you calling from? Give us a name.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
This is Tom in Phoenix.
Hi, Tom.
I'm
Welcome
the one
to
who
the
was
show.
having trouble getting through. Personal situation here. I live with my son, and it's about a year ago. He wanted to do something charitable. He took somebody in. And there's been problem almost from the start. The guy lives here for nothing. Is asked to contribute something from time to time, something petty. You know, overall, he's into being a victim in life in a big way. And I never saw anyone so intent on never doing anything that amounts to work. People are outraged that he could behave this way, you know. But
right. So
like,
is there a bottom line question we can get to that we can support you with? We're down to about 2 minutes, Tim. So is there a bottom line question?
We get to that. Well, it's like I figure I have some part in this, or at least my experience of it, and I don't want it to get out of hand, you know. But
we're down to about 40 seconds. What I would offer with the short time we've got, and I'd love it if you call in again tomorrow, maybe we can get more deeply into the question that you've got. But at this point, what I invite you to do is go to the website and download the worksheet and put your name, the name of whoever this person is, and just follow the directions on the worksheet. It's on the right-hand side of our website, www.whyagain.com. And do some worksheets around that, and you might find that might be useful. Say again?
I have done several on him in the past, but I agree. I have the thought that I need to do it again.
Okay. And we're going to have to close the show up because we're down to just a few seconds. And so if we can be of more support, please call us tomorrow, maybe earlier in the show, so we've got a little time to talk with you. And we join you in having the best year yet of your eternal life. And thanks for the call. Blessings.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, blessings.